this incredible opportunity opened up to start from the ground up, but build church for those who would never go to church.
Right.
And so the director in Chattanooga, he was just so welcoming to every idea that we brought, and said yes to this crazy idea that we pitched to him of, hey, Cleveland, where we're at, is a college town. We've got 2 high schools within 1.5 miles of each other, and we've got a whole bunch of kids who have no place to plug in a healthy way, who are not able to do good in their lives because they're so stuck in the muck of today.
Right.
What if we could be a part of changing that?
And so that's where the idea of the coffee shop came from. Yeah.
Based on that little rickety version in North Carolina,
Right.
We said, what if we could do this full scale?
Right.
What if we could do a full service shop? And it's not about coffee. Coffee's our means because it's what we were familiar with, and it's what we felt like in a college town would apply. But it's a means to a bigger end.
So your website says changing lives never tasted so good.
Yeah.
So is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, that when people come and they buy coffee here, that we have a product we're really proud of. We have a product that's award winning, which I think is that's another side tangent in itself. That the church sometimes struggles when we do things just to do the ministry component. And don't necessarily do them with excellence.
Well, I can tell you the coffee is excellent.
So thank you.
I'm enjoying it right now.
And so even things like if we're going to do something like a coffee house, we can't just do it. We can't just throw stuff together. If we have the means to do it well, we need to do it well, because if we're attaching the name of Jesus to it, it should be done in excellence. And so the Salvation Army was 100% on board with that. Right? And so seeing them kind of rally around that idea. And so since day one, the coffee we've served has been direct trade, meaning that we deal directly with farms. We pay the farmers directly, so there's no middlemen making money. And we're paying the people who actually grow it in the third world countries that it's grown in up to 10 times more than what they were getting paid before.
So why is that important to you? I mean, I know that's on your website as well. Talk about why that's important to you.
Well, and for us it was, we can't serve a cup of coffee, attach Jesus' name to it here in Cleveland, and have a cool relational ministry center here if we're taking advantage of a family in the third world country that we haven't met, who were breaking their backs to grow this coffee, and they're not being paid a fair wage for it.
Right.
That is to essentially attach Jesus' name to slavery in a different place. And so for us, it became very important we want to make sure that what we're putting out is lifting people up at every step of the way.
Sure.
That we're changing lives here, but we're also changing lives there.
Right.
That it's changing lives around the world, even if we never meet them, that we know we're a part of lifting them up out of that.
Yeah, even if you never have any direct ministry to them, even if they never know that why you're doing this or whatever, it's still important to you to know that we are doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that.
What do you think that says? I mean, do you promote that here? I mean, what do you think that says to the people who come in your doors here?
Yeah, we do promote that here, and we want them to know, hey, your coffee that you're drinking matters. It matters more than just the coffee that you're having right now. It matters because we made sure that the people who grew it also are still able to have a fair living wage.
Right.
They're still able to pay for their bed to sleep in and their food at night and not be scrounging scraps together after that.
Sure.
That we're making sure that people have a good idea, a good reputation for us. That even in a third world country, they're like, oh, no, we like selling coffee to them. Right. And that when they learn that we're a ministry too, that then they'll associate Jesus in the same way. Right. Oh, Jesus is a part of that group that actually pays us what we're worth.
Right. We're selling our coffee to Jesus almost.
Right, exactly. And so, and even in the Salvation Army, that is a huge concept. Salvation Armies that work around the world, and we work with a lot of folks in poverty around the globe.
Sure.
And so we just couldn't stomach the unknown of what if the young family in Colombia that grew our coffee is going to bed hungry tonight because we paid a cheaper wage.
Sure.
And that's just not okay.
Right.
And so, that even if we never meet that family, that we could be a part of their impact of service. And so, it matters. It's huge.
So bringing it back to the people that come in your door every day, it's a cup of coffee. I mean, how is coffee going to change anybody's life? I mean, we all get coffee, on a fair. I get mine, every day, twice a day. But how does coffee change in lives here?
Well, I'll tell you 2 stories. One is of a young lady named Brittany, and she's given me permission to share her story when we have opportunities like this. Brittany came in, she was a regular customer here, came in almost every day. She went to the local community college, and one day she came in and got her coffee, but then we saw that there were tears in her eyes. And we had that moment at the register where we were just like, Brittany, are you okay? Those simple words, but because we built relationship over cups of coffee.
Right.
She just broke, right? Terrible situation at home. Her brother was in a terrible situation, and she wanted him to get out of that situation, was scared to death for his life. I mean, it was a lot. And so we just got a chance in that moment at our coffee counter over her cup of coffee to just say, hey, do you mind if we just pray with you for a minute? Like, is that cool? Like, because I don't know where you are in faith, but I can tell you that trusting God gets you places, right? And if you can, I'd love to just pray and we can just trust God together for your brother. And she said yes, and we prayed, and she got her coffee and hung out a little more, sat at the counter, and then went on her way. And it was 2 days later, she showed back up with a young man. It was her brother, who had gotten out of that situation the same day and had moved in with her. Her brother was 18 and she was 21 at the time, and so her brother had gotten out of the rough situation he was in and moved in with her and was tracking towards some stability. And so she came back in beaming. Right. And I'm like, this is it. She actually she went on to do ministry training and was in full-time ministry for a bit, and now she's in the secular world for work, but is doing ministry there. And so God's opening up this cool new calling for her too. And we still talk to her pretty often, and she updates us on how God's working, and it's that. Right. The coffee doesn't have any innate power, but it opens up this point of conversation. We had another young man who did not interact with us. He came in, he got coffee, and he would sit and study. For a whole year, we saw him and didn't know his name. And it wasn't for lack of trying. He was just
into what he was doing.
He was not a conversational person. He was here every day. And he graduated, moved on, and 2 years later, one of our board members at the Salvation Army stumbled onto him at a park. He was a forest ranger at a park, and they were chatting and talking about where they were from, and the board member said, oh yeah, I'm from Cleveland. And he said, oh, I used to go to this coffee house in Cleveland. In fact, I went there every day in my senior year, and that coffee house saved my life. Wow. I was suicidal, and when I would get suicidal and I didn't have friends on campus, I didn't know where to go, but I'd been there and it felt safe.
Wow.
And so I would go there and I would sit and study, and most of the time I was fighting off tears and pretending to study. And I didn't want to talk to people. They probably don't even know my name because I never talked to them. But that space saved my life.
Wow.
And so how can coffee save a life, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even about the coffee, it's about just having that place where he'd been once and felt safe here. He didn't even know why at the time, but eventually his coming and just being around us, he knew that we were a ministry center for whatever intents and purposes. It never led to a prayer time for him, but it saved him. Right?
It's a powerful story.
Yeah.
We don't. I'm a believer that a lot of times when we are doing ministry work, when we're just being faithful to what God's called us to do, then things happen around us that we will never know until we get to heaven one day. Right? That we even had an impact or an influence. I mean, that is a case in point. I mean, you can't put a dollar value on that story because it encourages you so much just to keep doing what you're doing. I mean, I got chills going down my spine.
And my favorite part about that story is there's not a person attached to it. It's not that he had an interaction with me or with one of the baristas or any of that. It's that we were just faithful to set up the place that God told us to set up and to show up every day that He told us to show up. And I had no idea. I saw him every day, and he was just the studying kid who wouldn't talk to anybody, but had no idea what God was doing.
Wow!
But God's faithful. You being faithful to what God calls you to do doesn't require you to know. And if I've learned anything, it's that, right? I don't get to know the end plan. I don't. At this point, I've stopped asking, right? Because I know what the answer is going to be, right? Just trust me.
Right.
Just trust me for today.